Hello and welcome to Rathod Science Academy. Today in this session we are going to see current affairs of 18th April 2025. So let's get started with our discussion, guys. And let us see the first image. So actually we are going to start our class by seeing this image. So what is this image is depicting? It is depicting about one important animal species. What is that? It is Bengal tiger. And actually why I selected this topic because so this image they captured in one biological park, that is Nahargarh Biological Park. So if you are getting that kind of parks in the news, for sure you will be getting one prelims based question from that area. Okay, so here you have to see two important things. The first one is Bengal tiger. First important thing that you have to see is Bengal tiger. So whenever you are seeing any species in news, that is important from your GS paper 3 under environment and ecology. Okay, so what you have to see? You have to see some basic facts. So what are those basic facts, like what is the scientific name of that so and so animal? And you have to see in which areas we can see that, whether it is present only in India or whether we can see that same animal in other countries. Okay, and for the protection of that animal, government is taking any steps or not? If yes, what are those steps? So for this tiger we have an ambitious project, that is Project Tiger. You have to see that, and whenever government is implementing any project, you have to see which organization is managing that. Okay, that is regarding Project Tiger we have NTCA, National Tiger Conservation Authority. And even they will be conducting census, that is they will count the number of these tigers also once in every 4 years. So you have to collect data of recent tiger census in India. And when you see that data, you have to see in which states we have more number of tigers and in which states we have less number of tigers. Okay, all those things that you have to see, guys. And apart from that, you have to see what are the threats faced by this so and so animal. Okay, all these are very important. And at last you have to see what is this protection status of this so and so animal. So in this protection status, you will be seeing three important areas. One is in IUCN Red List. It had been listed under which category? And next you have to see under CITES. Okay, so what is that thing which we are protecting under the CITES? And next one here is you have to see Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Under this act, which schedule under which we are protecting that animal? Okay, so you have to see all these things. And actually, what is the second area that you have to focus? You have to focus on this Nahargarh Biological Park. Okay, so actually we have a wildlife sanctuary in this region. It is located in state of Rajasthan and it is very much near to Jaipur. You have to make a note of this. So if you see some facts regarding this Nahargarh Wildlife Sanctuary, so it is situated in Aravalli Hills, very, very important. So where are these Aravalli Hills are located? So if you draw a map of India, so here we have, this thing is Aravalli Hills like this, right? So in this Aravalli Hills itself, we have this sanctuary and it is just 20 kilometers from Jaipur, Rajasthan. And the name which this sanctuary or this area which got is from one fort, and that fort name is Nahargarh Fort. And actually this fort had been built in 18th century by Maharaja Savai Jai Singh, and he was the person who was founder of this Jaipur. So it is one prelims based fact that you have to remember. So who was the founder of this Jaipur? That is Maharaja Savai Jai Singh. And which fort he built? He built Nahargarh Fort. On that name of that fort, the nearby wildlife sanctuary got this name. Okay, and what is the area of this? It is around 720 hectares and it includes Nahargarh Biological Park. It is a part of this Nahargarh Sanctuary itself. And this area which is famous for lion safari. Okay, lion safari. And which kind of forest that we can see in this region? We have tropical deciduous forest. What is the important characteristics of this deciduous forest? There is a falling of leaves will happen, especially in the summer season. And even we can see grasslands And the famous animal species we can see is tigers, leopards, boars, lions, deers, sloth bears, and several other small mammals we can see. And even variety of birds like peacocks, owls, eagles, they can be also seen in this area. And actually it is present in desert region, right? So this Rajasthan is famous for desert. So in desert, which kind of animals are mostly seen? That is reptiles. Okay. So we can see reptiles like pythons, monitor lizards, amphibians like frogs and toads in this region. So these are the things that you have to remember, guys. And now let us see the next article. So see the title. Title says India to become global leader in all spheres by 2047, says Shah. Who is this Amit Shah? Amit Shah is Union Home Minister, right? So whenever our government diplomats, whenever they are making any statements, that is very, very important. And try to write this, India to become global leader in all spheres by 2047, says Amit Shah. Okay, so from where we can connect this topic? We can connect this topic in different subjects, guys. So we have economy, right, from GS paper 3. There we can connect. And even from society point of view, we can connect. From governance, polity and governance point of view, we can connect. Okay. So if you see why this statement which is made by our Home Minister. And here, see this year 2047. What is this 2047? What is significance of this year? Is there any importance of this year? So when we got independence? In year 1947. So this 2047 will mark 100th year of our independence, right? So we'll be celebrating 100th anniversary of our independence in year 2047. That means it is one of the very, very significant year, right? So here you have to see what are the targets of our government to be achieved by 2047. So I don't know whether you can recall it or not. So have you heard this Viksit Bharat 2047? Yes, right? So here you have to see what are the targets of our country or of our government of India to be achieved by this 2047 is very, very important, guys. So now let us see this article clearly. So actually our Union Home Minister Amit Shah, he said that India is on track to become a global leader across all domains by 2047 because this year will coincide our 100th year anniversary of independence. So if you see some details, it is saying that yes, Amit Shah gave the signals for ambitious plan for India. And actually this 2047 which not only makes a timeline for our growth, but even it is very, very important for our global recognition as well. And he said that in different fields like in technology, in economy, in culture, in international relations, wherever you go by this 2047 we are going to achieve lot of the things. For example, technology, if you take like defense, we are also exporting now defense equipment to other countries, for example, BrahMos missiles. And even in space, we are running in the space. And because of the recent SpaceX experiment and recent RTL-1 success and Chandrayaan-3 success, different countries are looking towards India. And even we have an ambitious target of 30 trillion economy by 2047, so that we are also boosting up in our economy also. And for promoting of culture also with different countries, we are coming up with memorandum of understandings, and government is also promoting lot regarding our culture. And even we are celebrating this June 21st as Yoga Day, also International Yoga Day, and we are promoting our culture to other countries. Okay, like that in different areas, we are going to excel by 2047. So this is the thing which mainly said. And if you're talking about one more important statement which gave by Union Home Minister is like role of Prime Minister Modi. So whatever the policies and what are the government strategies which are come up by this Modi government, so they are focusing on economic reforms. So have you ever heard about this digitalization or digital market or digital money like that? Yes, we are using different digital platforms for transactions of the money also. So when it was came to existence during this period, that means whenever we are going for improving of digitalization or digitalization of economy, yes, we can reduce corruption, yes or no? So like that, lots of the reforms, they came up. And even one more important area is demonetization year 2016. And even GST came up in year 2017. So because of all these reforms and as well as we are moving forward in technological advancements also. So because of all these things, yes, we are going to achieve this enhanced status for India. And actually in this article, they also praised Brahma Kumaris. So actually they promote the peace, and as well as they are promoting yoga as a peaceful practice, so that we are improving international relations, and as well as we are also contributing positive for our India's soft power also. That is also the thing which mainly said here. And if you see what are the targets in 2047 that we have to achieve. So first one here is, you have to remember this for sure, and if you want, please make a note somewhere. So we are aiming for 30 to 35 trillion dollar economy by 2047. One important target by 2047 is we have to achieve 30 to 35 trillion dollar economy, and we have to be in the top 3 of global economies. That's the first important target. And next one here is, we are going to decrease poverty. Okay, poverty alleviation we are focusing on. So over 250 million people, they are lifted out of poverty since 2014, and we are taking furthermore steps to decrease poverty in India. And even we have this initiatives like Viksit Bharat 2047. We are focusing on especially voice of youth. So in this voice of youth, we are aiming to involve younger generation in policy making and as well as nation building. And not only that, we are having the renewable energy targets. What are those targets? So we have to generate 1 million new jobs in this renewable energy sector by 2030. So these are some important things that you have to remember, guys. And now let us see other 2 articles. So title says, Haryana mountaineer seek better jobs, higher cash reward. So whenever you are getting this kind of articles which says about success of certain people, yes, you have to make a note, guys, because you can use that directly in your essay. So actually, Reena Bhati, she is 35 years old mountaineer from Hisar of Haryana. And actually, she was the first person. So here in these 2 paragraphs, you can see. So she is the fastest Indian woman to summit both Mount Everest and as well as Mount Lotos, which they are the world's highest peaks within just 24 hours. And next one here is, yes, here. Yeah, she also the first Indian woman to ascend Mount Elbrus. Mount Elbrus is the Europe's highest peak. So if you read this article, even you will be getting the details of highest mountain peaks in the different countries also. Okay, you can see here Mount Everest, Mount Lotos, and next one is Mount Elbrus. Okay, so here actually you know that if you are excelling in the sports, so you will be having sports quota, right? If you are applying for any job, if you are applying for any education, so you have this quota for sports. So in that you will be getting some benefits. But actually she is saying that if you are comparing with the sports, the mountaineers are getting less benefits. So she directly appealed for the better job and as well as high cash reward. Directly she appealed Chief Minister of that state. Okay, so see about what are the hardships she faced. And this article you can also use while you are writing any example of women empowerment related things also. And each one is 37 people report nail deformities after hair loss in Buldhana. So actually this area which is located in state of Maharashtra. So as you all know that one important problem that we are facing is water pollution. So in this region also there is a very high water pollution. So actually in this water pollution, the important pollutant is nitrate. So there is a very high nitrate levels and the levels are 54%. And what is the acceptable limit? Acceptable limit is only 10%. If you have this 10% of nitrate in the water, you can consume. But here it is 54%. So whenever people are consuming this water, what is happening? First they got hair fall, very high intense hair fall. And after now they are having this nail deformalities. They are not growing properly and they are falling off. Easily cutting off the nails, they are not growing at the proper rate and the falling off of nails are happening. So finally they went for checking of the water in this region and they found that nitrate level is very high. So if you are writing any answer regarding groundwater pollution, can you use this article? Yes. So here introduction, when you are writing about this groundwater pollution, you can add this case study that in Maharashtra Buldhana region, nitrate pollution is very high in the water. It is 54% and acceptable limit is just 10%. Because of that, that is causing lots of problems like nail deformalities and as well as hair fall loss. So in this way, you have to use this kind of articles while you are writing your answers. Okay, so this is called as value addition, guys. Okay, now let us see the next article. See this. AP promulgates ordinance on subclassification of essays. Yes, there are two important keywords, guys. The first one is ordinance. Second one is subclassification of essays. Okay, so here, where we can see this topic? In your governance, you have this topic called as vulnerable sections of society. So you have this topic of vulnerable sections of society. So who are vulnerable people? So we have scheduled caste, we have scheduled tribe, we have women, we have elderly, and we have people with disabilities. So these are the vulnerable sections, right? So we are talking about this. Yes, that is nothing but scheduled caste. So here, why it is in use? Because yes, we have SC community, that is scheduled caste community. So whether all are poor? No. Some sections of people, they already got advantage from the government, but certain people, they didn't get any advantage. So because of this, what happened? The people who had got already advantage will be getting more benefited from the government schemes. So now what government is doing is subclassification. That SC also, they are dividing it into 3 subclasses. So based on these 3 subclasses, now they will be getting benefits from the government. It is nothing but like creamy layer in OBC category. Okay, it is nothing but creamy layer in SCs. Okay, so what is this next important keyword? Ordinance. So ordinance is there directly in your syllabus, guys. If you are reading your Lakshmikant book, so we have this ordinance making power for executive, like president and as well as governor. So normally, who will make the laws? So we have 3 organs of the state, right? We have executive, we have legislature, and we have judiciary. So what this work of legislature? Legislature will make laws. So what is the work of legislature? Legislature will make laws. So what this executive will do? Executive will implement laws. Executive will implement laws. And what does judiciary do? Judiciary will interpret the laws. So it will check whether those laws which are made according to our constitution or not. If it is according to constitution, it's okay. If it is not according to constitution, they will say that it is null and void, it is unconstitutional. Okay, so normally legislature will make laws. So whenever they are making laws, we have 2 houses at the central level, right? We have Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they should be in session. So whenever the sessions are going on in this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, then only they can make the laws. But what happens if Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are not in session? Do they have sessions on every day? Only we have 3 sessions, right? What are they? Budget session, winter session, monsoon session. Only 3 times, that to 4 months, 1, 3 and 2. So remaining they will be not having the session, right? So if in that time, if there is an urgent need to pass any law, then what can they do? So now this power will be taken up by executive now. So executive, now it will make laws. And this process of making laws by executive is called as ordinance. And under this ordinance, who can make the laws? At the central level, we have president. At the state level, we have governor. Okay, president and governor, they make the laws. Whenever this Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, they are not in session. This power is for president and governor only. Whether it is there in our constitution? Yes. But which article says that? Article 123 talks about president's ordinance making power, and the same numbers. Article 213 talks about ordinance making power of your governor, right somewhere. Okay. So here now, if you see in the state level, in the state what happened? So we have legislative assembly and legislative council. In some states, they have only legislative assembly, right? So whenever they are not in session, if they want to make law, who will make the law? Governor will make the law by using which article? Article 212. That is happening in the state of AP now. Clear? Okay, now let us see the context. So if you see the context, it is saying that Andhra Pradesh government has taken a significant step for what? For sub-classification of these SCs and houses in not session. So they are making this law through the process called as ordinance. And the name of that ordinance is Andhra Pradesh Scheduled Caste Sub-Classification Ordinance of 2025. Okay, so if you see some important points here, why this sub-classification? So whenever government is giving any welfare schemes for SCs, who will be getting benefited? Obviously, good income status people will be getting benefited, but what about the least? They will be not getting benefited, right? So here sub-classification which aims for transparent targeting of welfare measures more efficiently. So especially even in this SCs also, there is uneven representation and uneven allocation of resources is happening. So because of this, we are not uplifting entire community together. So because of this, they are going for targeting the most backward subcaste now. And most backward people will be getting the benefited from the government. And next one here is government wants to increase their participation in the politics and social and as well as economic spheres. Especially they want to focus on very least or marginalized group within this scheduled caste. And they want to focus on targeted welfare delivery. Not all in this SCs, only the people who are eligible, they will be getting the benefits now. Okay, and for this government introduced 200-point roster system to bring transparency. And with this mechanism, they will try to identify the targeted beneficiaries very, very efficiently. And what happens? They will try to give the benefits to that. So that what happens, what will be advantage? There will be proper utilization of funds. There will be very less misallocation of funds or misutilization of funds. So if you see some facts regarding this ordinance, ordinance is nothing but normally laws will be made by legislature. So now in this ordinance, non-legislative body, that is executive body, will be making the laws. Who are those executive bodies makes the laws? At the central level we have president, at the state level we have governor. That is the thing. And what is the difference between an act and ordinance? Act is permanent, but ordinance is only for temporary. So whenever this president or like governor, whenever they are passing ordinance, what happens? Again, when the houses will be in the session, they have to pass this ordinance for sure in the house. If they are not passing, means again it will be stuck down, guys. You have to remember this. And articles, article 123, which is about the president power, and article 213, which talks about governor ordinance making power. Okay, so that is the thing that you have to remember, guys. And now let us see the next article. Yes, title says Environment Ministry must roll back order on desulfurizing coal plants. So very, very important topic of the day, guys. Please focus. So actually electricity we can generate through renewable energy and as well as non-renewable energy sources, right? So normally examples of renewable energy sources, we have solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, tidal energy, etc. And non-renewable, yes, we are using coal for making of electricity, and this kind of electricity is called as thermal electricity, right? So what happens here is we have coal plants. So in this coal plants, what we'll do, we'll take coal and we'll be heating the coal at a very high temperature and will produce electricity, right? So whenever you are burning coal, it will release what? Emissions. So are they good for our environment? No, they are not good, right? So whenever we are going for burning of this coal in these coal plants, whatever the gas that is released, that is fuel gas, which is having high amount of sulfur dioxide. So sulfur dioxide is a pollutant in our atmosphere or not? It is a pollutant. What happens if there is high amount of sulfur dioxide in our atmosphere? It will cause acid rains, right? Is that good, acid rains? No. Can you bear if at least one drop of acid which falls on your skin? Then what happens if acid rain happens? It will be causing harm not only for humans, for animals, for the soil, for plants, whatever it may be, right? Okay. So here actually in 2015 what our environment ministry did was, environment ministry said, so whichever the coal plants which are there in India, they have to install certain technology. So in that technology, what they have to do is they have to absorb sulfur dioxide. That technology is called as flue gas desulfurization. Okay. So if you see context, it is saying that our Union Environment Ministry in 2015 policy, it mandated that. So how many coal-fired power plants are there in India? Please make a note. 537 coal-fired power plants present across our country. They have to install this flue gas desulfurization equipment. So this has been done in 2015 and many a times this timeline which is increased. Okay. And actually recently one study had been done. So the name of that study, the study commissioned by Office of Principal Scientific Advisor conducted study. Okay, and in the study they are saying that flue gas desulfurization requirement should only apply to burning of imported coal or high sulfur coal. So we have around 537 coal fire plants in India. So if you want to get the technology, what happens? There will be the increasing of cost for the so-and-so companies, right? So if they have to bring that technology and if they want to install in their power plants, is that feasible for everyone? No, there will be increasing of cost. And do we have that technology? We are at a very, very nascent stage now. Okay, so this article is saying that this study said that it is not necessary for implementation or mandatory installing of this flue gas desulfurization all coal plants. Only in the coal plants where they are burning imported coal. First criteria is imported coal. Second one is when they are burning coal which is having higher sulfur content, they need to install this, not all. That means only 0.5% of coal-fired power plants need to implement that, not 100%. So this is the thing which mainly said. So why this study said like this? So why this study said like this is, yes, cost. If you want to install this flue gas desulfurization, is not that much easy. It is very, very costly. So because of this, if there are small plants, can they afford this? No, it will lead to huge losses. So actually, if you want to install this flue gas desulfurization technique, the estimated cost is 1.2 crore per megawatt. It will lead to the straining of resources, the first important thing. And this one here is most of our coal-fired plants in India, they use 92% of coal from India itself. So what is the advantage of coal from India? So they are having very low sulfur content. And as well as because of this, do we need this flue gas desulfurization now as soon as possible? No, we can delay it. Okay, that is the thing which mainly said here. So because of this, now our environment ministry is thinking that we have to remove this back. Okay, that is the thing which is there here. And what is this flue gas desulfurization method? So it is a process through which we can remove sulfur compounds from the exhaust emissions. So you know this exhaust, right? Whenever we are burning that, whatever the smoke that we are getting, so we'll be sending out through an exhaust fans. Exhaust will be there, right? So here, from that exhaust, we will remove the sulfur components. Okay. So actually, we will be adding some absorbents here. So these absorbents will be absorbing the sulfur dioxide which is present in that exhaust, and they will be releasing clean gas into the atmosphere. So this technology is called as flue gas desulfurization. So I'll show how it works. So this is entirely the mechanism which is present in our coal fire plants. And what are the gas we are getting? So we are releasing it into one absorbent here. So it will be absorbing this SO2 and it will be releasing clean flue gas into the atmosphere. So in reality, it will be looking like this. So these are this flue gas desulfurization technologies that we are using right now. Okay, now let us see the next article, guys. Title says, making primary healthcare visible, accessible and affordable. So it is very, very important, and actually this healthcare is directly there in your syllabus of governance. So in how many levels we have this healthcare centers or healthcare in India? So if you see about the healthcare in India, we have 3-tier structure. So we have primary healthcare, we have secondary healthcare, and we have tertiary. Tertiary is also called as multi-specialty, like that. So actually, where we can see these primary healthcare centers normally in the rural areas, and secondary and tertiary we can see in advanced or urban areas. So actually we are having lots of problems in this primary healthcare sectors. So do you know, government also came up with this scheme called as Ayushman Bharat, right? So this scheme is focusing on secondary and tertiary sectors more. And under this scheme, how much amount the government will be giving? 5 lakh rupees for a family, right? Okay, so this article is saying that Government of India introduced one ambitious scheme called as Ayushman Bharat. It had been started in year 2018 in India. And it is focusing on transforming and as well as strengthening of India's public health system. How? Government is funding this healthcare of disadvantaged group, and because of that we are going to improve this healthcare system in India. Okay, so actually the problem here is no one is taking care of this primary healthcare centers. So in primary healthcare centers, what are the problems we have? Do we have infrastructure? Do we have proper facilities? Do we have at least proper available medical practitioner there? And do we get medicines, everything on time? No. So these are the problems, right? So here you have to make the note of what are the problems that we have in our primary healthcare system. I wrote clearly. So first one is inadequate facilities. We don't have proper infrastructure, proper sufficient space, essential equipment to do anything, and even sanitation will be not there properly. And second problem is limited services. Only they will be providing the first aid like things, but they will not do the surgeries. And this one here is there is also shortage of staff. Qualified healthcare professionals, they will not available. For example, doctors, for example, nurses, especially in rural areas. And this one is high absenteeism. Even though the posts are filled, they will not come on time. Yes or no? If the timings is 9 o'clock, they'll come 11, 12 like that. Whenever they wish, they can come. So that is one important problem. And this one is, do they have the proper supply of medicines? No. There is lack of supply of medicines. And even do they have proper funding? So funding will be also very less. Resource constraint is there, obviously. And next one here is discrimination and lack of trust. Okay, so these are the important problems that we have in this primary healthcare centers. And now you have to think about what can be done. What is the way forward? And today I will give you the question regarding this primary healthcare centers itself. And now let us see the next and the last article of the day. I found this article in your text and context, guys. Title says, how can V2G technology help India's power sector? So please make a note here, that is V2G technology. What is it? Okay, you may get a prelims question directly. Recently V2G technology is in news. What it is? And they will give you 4 options. Or else they may directly give you like, consider the following statements regarding V2G technology, and they'll give 2 to 4 statements and they'll ask which are right and which are wrong. Like that also you can get questions. So here V2G, please make a note, V2G refers to technologies that will enable electric vehicle batteries, EV batteries, to send power back to grid when an EV, electric vehicle, is not in use. It can act as decentralized battery energy storage device. It is very, very important, guys. So that is nothing but we are keeping charging for the electric vehicles. And if you are not using that vehicle, then what happens? It will be waste of the energy, right? So rather than that, here we can send back that electric energy into the grid so that we can efficiently use the electricity. That is about this V2G concept. The V2G concept is nothing but vehicle to grid. So whenever we are keeping charging for our electric vehicles, what happens? If you are not using, it is waste. So we are sending that back to the grid if you are not using that. That is called as V2G technology. So do we have this technology in India? Actually, in India, this V2G integration is at the nascent stage. Just we are starting on that. We are working on that. We started working on that. Okay. And Kerala is currently experiencing one thing, that is rapid adoption of electric vehicles. So actually we don't have this proper technology because how much percentage of vehicles are electric vehicles in India? Only 2% of vehicles are electric vehicles. So if there is very less adoption of these electric vehicles, then what happened? Do we have this advanced technology? No. So if there is increasing of people's participation and people are coming and adopting this electric vehicles more, then we can come up with this technology in future. In future, for sure, we will be having this V2G technology, for sure. Okay, so that we can use electricity efficiently. So these are the some important articles that appeared in our today's Hindu newspaper. So by this, I'm concluding, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and please do like this class and share this class to your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to Rathod's IAS Academy.